attendees will be able to join.
Kevin, do you want me to offline right now?
You can, or you can stay on. It's up to you for the time being. I don't know if you want to ping Matt. Or look at something 100 times, Steve, and then notice that something's wrong right when you're ready to go with it. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started just around the top of the hour, waiting on a few more folks that have RSVP'd, and then we will get started right about 6 o'clock. Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Water Matters, charting the course, a look at SCV Water's 5-year strategic plan. My name is Kevin Strauss. I'm the communications manager here at SCV Water, and we wanted to take you through this next hour and go through our strategic plan. I know we're right at the top of 6 o'clock, and we've got an hour to work with. We've got a lot of content to go over. A little bit of some housekeeping before we get started. Here's a look at our agenda, some tentative times that we're looking at to cover everything today. We are on a webinar on Zoom. It should have the ability for you to raise your hand and ask questions at the end for Q&A. If you do have a question, though, as we're going through, please feel free to type it into the Q&A box. You'll see a button for Q&A on your screen. Type it in there. It will come to me. I'll be able to moderate that at the end. Ideally, you'll be able to click the raise hand feature during the Q&A, and I'll be able to unmute you, and you can ask your question directly. Should that not work, we've got the text option as well. Going through some of our introductions, our Matt Stone is our general manager here at SCV Water. He should be joining us in just a little bit. Steve Cole is our assistant general manager, and Ed Means from Means Consulting is our project manager for the strategic plan. And you'll be hearing a little bit from Steve and Ed as we go through the program tonight. So why are we here? Our workshop objective: we've passed a strategic plan. We wanted to provide an opportunity for the public to come listen about our plan, hear about all the things happening at SCV Water, and then share this vision with our community. And a little more housekeeping. I'm going to drop into the chat a link to our strategic plan webpage on our website. If you haven't had an opportunity to go through the PDF document, look through the plan for yourself, it's available online. At the very bottom of that page, and I'll put the link into the chat, there's a comment box, a suggestion box. Feel free to drop any suggestions that you have in there, any comments, any questions that you may have about tonight's webinar, the strategic plan overall. Those emails will come directly to me. We'll be able to follow up with you one-on-one and submit your feedback to the SCV Water Board of Directors as well. And as we go through and update our plan over the next few years and annually, as we look at any revisions that need to be made, we'll be sure to keep those comments together for that. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant General Manager, Steve Cole, to talk us through a little bit about the background of SCV Water. Steve?
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you for those of you that are spending a little bit of time tonight to join us to learn more about our strategic plan. I'm Steve Cole. I'm the Assistant General Manager at SCV Water, and I'm going to walk you through kind of just some high-level items. A little bit about who we are. We are the regional water agency in the Santa Clarita Valley. We were formed in January 1, 2018 by an act of the state legislature known as Senate Bill 634. You'll hear a little bit later from Matt about that and some of the promises that were made from bringing the water agencies together to form the new SCV Water. It's a pretty substantial service area, 196 square miles, 75,000 service connections, which equates to roughly almost 300,000 people in the Santa Clarita Valley that our agency service. Next slide. Just a little bit about some of our infrastructure. Many of you probably see it when you're looking around town. We've got tanks, but there's a bunch of stuff you don't see, like pipes as well. So we do have 108 water storage tanks. That capacity relates to about 171 million gallons of storage and roughly 932 miles of pipeline through the community. Just a real quick high-level financial information. Our 24-25 fiscal year budget, we have an operating budget of right around 155 million and a capital improvement budget of about 123 million. Next slide. Just a little bit about our community and where our water comes from. We've been very fortunate in our community to have multiple sources of water. That has not happened by accident, but by purposeful investment in different water supplies over the history in the valley. We do have recycled water that we're continuing to expand. We have very fortunate to have groundwater in both two aquifer systems, kind of a shallow alluvial system, as well as a deeper formation known as the Saugus Formation. On a normal year, that water provides roughly about 50% of our local supplies. Imported water, we are a state water project contractor, so we also bring water down through the state water project through the whole system, starting at Lake Oroville in the north, through the transmission systems that bring that water down to our area, through Castaic Lake to one of either of our two treatment plants in the valley. We were also early adopters of groundwater banking, so a lot of that is done in the Central Valley. where we take water in high water years, much like we've just experienced, and we put that away for storage and use in dry years. And so those supplies are critical as we manage our overall portfolio. Next slide, Kevin. So now I'll turn it over to Matt, and he can walk through the formation of the agency and the promises of Senate Bill 634.
Okay, let me just try to get video here. There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Sorry, I've had a little microphone trouble on and off today, so I just wanted to check. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being here tonight. We'll talk a little bit about SB 634. That's a Senate bill that was essentially the encapsulation of really many years of dialogue and a couple of fairly intensive years of dialogue between the former boards of Newhall County and Castaic Lake, as well as with the community, to develop a plan for a single unified water agency serving the Santa Clarita Valley. And so the idea was to combine the former wholesale surface water treatment state water project regional oriented Castaic Lake with the three water suppliers who provided water locally into homes, sometimes referred to as retailers, Newhall County Water District, Santa Clarita Water Division, and then subsequently also Valencia Water Company, into a single agency so that the scope of the agency could really not only provide more effective service at the retail level, but integrate some of the planning and thinking and governance on a regional basis. And so over the subsequent years since the initial start of the agency in 2018, we've really worked on integrating our staff, integrating our operations, coming up with consistent policies and customer service, a consistent rate structure, trying to realize some of the operational efficiencies, as well as dealing with additional mandates that have come our way. A couple of examples would be the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which required the development of a single groundwater management plan for the entire groundwater basin that serves our area. We're able to work on that with kind of a unified staff. We also had a kind of an urgent situation that came up with the discovery of and increased regulation of PFAS chemicals, which were found in our groundwater. And under the prior model, each of the three retail agencies would have kind of been on their own to try to deal with the impacts of that. As it was as a unified agency, we were able to combine both the technical resources of some of the more experienced staff from each agency, as well as the ability to make sure that each part of our service area had enough water while we took affected wells offline. We used the banked water from the regional agency, the former Castaic Lake, to help offset some of the short-term impacts. And then we've been working diligently to bring wells back online. We're just wrapping up our third well treatment project with another that just had bids coming in, and this will be something that's ongoing for a number of years. I mentioned the governance. We formerly had, in one form or another, 16 different elected or appointed governing officials in the Valley, 5 on the Newhall board, 11 on the Castaic board. And that has been combined into and winnowed down over time into a 9-member elected board, all elected from 3 different representation divisions in the Valley. So there's 3 directors representing each division. And for every election where you live, you'll either be voting on 2 seats generally or 1 seat. depending on the year. It kind of alternates every other year, every other election cycle. This has been, I think, a very helpful improvement in terms of being able to make decisions, set policies. It's very helpful in pursuing litigation against Whitaker Burmite, where we have a pending judgment for approximately $70 million. And we're able to have that shepherded by a single board rather than having to go back and forth to multiple agencies, as an example of something that makes us a little bit more nimble. We've also been able to focus more on watershed level issues, looking at opportunities in the watershed for working with partners on restoration, on Arundo removal and management, and other areas where it helps to have the entire valley water resource in consideration. We also, I think, have developed a very good partnership with the sanitation districts, where they're responsible for wastewater and we're responsible for water, and we're able to have discussions about strategic issues and opportunities there. So I think it gives you kind of a flavor on that, and I think I'll stop there and certainly can pick up questions in the Q&A section.
Thanks, Matt. We are going to go ahead and do the Q&A at the end of the evening, so
Right.
we'll keep going straight through. Is this yours as well, or is Ed coming on?
I'm planning on handling this one, but I'm more than happy to tag team it. Ed Means here, welcome, and appreciate the opportunity to present to you on some of the elements of the strategic plan. I'm the consultant that worked with Matt and his management team, the staff at the agency, and the board of directors to frame a strategic plan that'll set the stage for the next 5 years. It's always helpful in a strategic planning process to spend a little bit of time talking about the things that were accomplished in the last 5 years to sort of set the stage for the coming 5. So in the course of my segment here, I want to hit on some of these highlights. I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that the agency identified coming up in the next 5 years. A little bit about benefits of strategic planning for the customers. What does it mean for you, on the ground in receiving this vital service? And then a little bit about the process that we use to develop the plan, and then the structure of the plan itself and how these things, kind of work and hang together, if you will. And then we'll go at a very high level through 8 of the goals that were established by the board of directors. And as you'll see, if you go and dig into the plan, there's 40 pages or so of details under those goals that provide the roadmap, if you will, for accomplishments in the coming 5-year period. So I just want to hit on a couple of the highlights. Matt hit on a couple of these important. I want to focus really just on the maybe the first 2 and then 1 or 2 others. The water utilities are unique in the sense that they're buried, right? I mean, we as customers, we expect the water to be there when we turn the tap on, and we expect it to be safe, and we expect the billing to be accurate and fair and the like. So it's largely out of sight. The reality, though, is that while we see water coming out of a tap, that water flows through a very complex set of very large pipes, through pumps and valves and water treatment plants and aqueducts that are pumped and supplied by significant levels of electrical service. So they're very, very complicated. They require sophisticated engineers and operations and maintenance staff and administrative staff to literally just keep the water flowing. So the first bullet here, when you take 4 agencies and combine them, as was done over the last 5 years, the first and foremost objective is to make sure that these 4 entities that delivered this vital service, when they merge as one, that they work seamlessly. And one of the huge accomplishments in this transition and merger of these for agencies was in fact the continued delivery of reliable and safe water service. The second bullet here, meeting all regulatory requirements. Water is very carefully regulated both at the state and the federal level, and we're happy to report that the 5 years was accomplished with meeting all of these regulatory requirements, one of which was the third bullet that Matt referred to. Importantly, you all recognize in the last 5 years, there were some very significant water shortages that occurred as a result of low rainfall up in the San Joaquin, Sacramento River Delta area. The agency worked collaboratively with the community to successfully reduce water consumption by 24%, which is huge and very much a hats off to all the customers out there that helped to make this happen. And then I'll mention maybe just this last bullet because it is an important part of sustaining a viable water system, and that is ensuring that you have a rate structure in place that's fair, that recovers the amount of resources that you need to fund this big infrastructure that's essential to providing this critical service. So there was, in fact, a multi-year rate plan that was developed and established these appropriate levels of funding and rates and reserves for the agency. So these are 10 bullets here. There are some 35 that are highlighted in the report itself. I encourage you to look through those, and it's a lot to celebrate. But so here we are looking at this next iteration of the plan. And the challenge, this next slide, please. The challenges that were identified by the management team and the board included, and these are not in order of priority, if you will. First, continued streamlining of the agencies. 4 different agencies, now 4 different systems that need to be all compatible and work very collaboratively together. Great progress has been made in that. There's continued opportunities to continue that streamlining. So that's an important next 5-year challenge for them. Addressing climate change and variability. We know from our experience in Southern California in general that we're subjected to changes in rainfall patterns in the state. Recently, those have seemed to be getting drier and hotter and more variable. And so our water systems are designed to capture water in the watersheds, store that water, and then move it to the water systems and then ultimately to consumers over time. And so maintaining that sort of system and making sure that it's capable of capturing increased water flows, such as we've seen in the last couple of years, is very important. So having strategies in place, we'll talk more about those in a little bit, is really important. The workforce is changing. There's all water systems, all entities in the United States, businesses, government, are seeing significant retirements in the workforce, new skill sets being required, in ensuring that pipeline of employees, of talent is there to fill these spots that are being vacated through retirement. Having a plan in place to address these changing workforces is a third important challenge. We all have been influenced by inflation and the inability to get certain goods, especially during the COVID period. These so-called supply chain constraints and increases in costs are part and parcel of what we're all facing in our lives. And in the water utility community, we're seeing that in significantly affecting the ability to a challenge to continue to provide this service. So having strategies in place to ensure those constraints aren't significant, managing the inflation and our costs of labor and costs of treatment and materials, and making sure we have rates in place that are adequate and fair to contribute to those costs. Our fifth challenge here is the water supply portfolio investments. And one thing we've learned in water supply in Southern California over the last several decades is having many arrows in your quiver is an important kind of concept. So not being overly dependent on any one particular supply, because things happen, the supply becomes unavailable. And if you're fully reliant on that, then you don't have adequate supply. So making sure that these investments are spread across a variety of different supply sources, make sure that the agency can meet any kind of challenge that comes up with regard to water supply. And then last, but certainly not least, ensuring that the agency continues to meet the water quality requirements and providing a healthful product to the customers in the valley. So 6 challenges that were highlighted here. What I'd like to do next is just spend a little bit on strategic planning itself and kind of why you do it, how we did it, and what a plan looks like and how it works together. So next slide, strategic plan, customer benefits. So if you first off, these strategic plans aren't like stone tablets that are passed down from on high. They're living documents. They're designed to do the best we can at foreseeing the challenges coming up and making sure we have in place plans that will put us in a good position to be able to deal with those challenges. But it is living. It's not locked in, set in stone. And the whole idea is to be flexible and how that plan is rolled out. And of course, plans require funding from the board of directors on a annual budget or 2-year budget basis. So the board has the opportunity to go in and revisit this plan literally in every budget cycle, and appropriately in every budget cycle. Importantly, if you spell out what it is you're planning on doing and what's required to do it, it helps align the organization. Everybody's on the same page. The folks that have to make the plan actually happen understand the roadmap, and it provides a roadmap for the community to see what the intent of the agency is with regard to maintaining delivery of this critical resource. And then, of course, it addresses these new major issues and opportunities, some of which we just spoke about: drought, maintaining a good competitive agency in terms of using best technologies and being efficient and effective, provision of new services, whether it's through opportunities to be creative in how people can pay bills, or providing solar energy to help power these energy intensive processes, but keeping your eye open in terms of being able to provide these new services is important. New service areas, as the area continues to develop, making sure water service is available for those developments. And lastly, but not least, is regulations. We talked about water quality, but there are a variety of other regulations that relate to endangered species and relate to energy use, workplace health and safety, et cetera. All of the moving parts that have to move like a well-oiled machine for a water utility to keep providing, again, this critical service to you, the customers. So the benefits of doing this is you've got a roadmap and you can see where you're going, and then you can affect the policies, programs, the funding to make these things happen. So the process that we use, the next slide, is kind of fourfold. One is we step back and we talk to the staff to find out, what's working well, what needs to be refined. Are there opportunities out there? Are there threats that the agency faces, like drought would be an example? We hold these stakeholder workshops. We then review the planning documents that the agency has in place over the last few years, and collectively take that kind of body of information and present that in a board workshop to the board. So here's the feedback that we're getting, here are the areas and opportunities, here are the challenges we're facing. We sit down with the board and through a board workshop, spent a couple days talking about what the appropriate mission for the organization is, what the vision for the organization is, values and goals. And I'm going to talk about these terms of art here shortly to make them more apparent in terms of what the meaning of these are and how they work together. So out of the board workshop, we come up with sort of the top end of the plan, which then allows us to step back with the management team and prepare sort of the details of the draft plan elements. That draft plan was then reported back to the board in a workshop, and that comments were taken, improvements made to the plan, and then finalization of the plan occurred. So that's the basic process that occurred over about a 6-month period. So let me describe to you now the strategic plan elements. So if you think about, next slide, if you think about in your own life, if you have something big that you need to get accomplished, and it's a huge challenge, just a personal example, my daughter got married in October, late October, and there was a lot of planning that had to go into that. And fortunately, my wife and daughter left me out of a lot of that part. But there's a lot of planning that goes into it and a lot of detail. So the goal was to have a flawless wedding, right? But you can't just make that happen by itself. Strategic planning is similar to that. You establish an overarching, what we call a vision. And then that vision, in this case, is where the organization wants to be in the future. And I'll share the vision statement specifically with you here coming up next, but just thinking about how the structure works. So the overall kind of direction where the organization wants to be in the future is the vision. There's a mission that supports achieving that vision, and the mission is the purpose of the organization. So generally for utilities, it relates to providing quality, water quality, and reliability. And that mission, and I'll share that mission statement again with you here momentarily also. The mission is supported by more detailed goals, right? So if we want to achieve the vision, we have to meet the mission of the organization. We have to execute, we have to accomplish these goals. There are 8 of them. And the goals are organization-wide desires that support achievement of the vision. So if you achieve the goals, you support the mission, you reach the vision. So moving for those top 3 elements, we generally try to have the board of directors own those. They are elected by you, and they are responsible to you, and they are responsible for ensuring that the direction of the organization is adequate, is appropriate, is responsive to the challenges the organization faces. When we move down into strategies, we start getting more detailed in the plan. Strategies are generally approaches that are required to achieve the goals, right? So it's a more defined level of activity. So if we accomplish the strategies, we achieve the goals, we support the mission, we reach the vision. Lastly, the fifth element, if you will, are what we refer to as objectives. And objectives are unique in the fact that they are measurable. You can determine, did you accomplish them or not? There are 90 plus objectives in the plan, and you can read it as you go through the document. We'll only highlight a couple of them here today. But the objectives are really vitally important. They are the level at which accountability occurs. You can determine whether you accomplish them or not. You use in part key performance indicators at the bottom of this graphic here, which are specific measures of progress against the plan. So, you establish what is the highest level you want to accomplish, the vision. You define the mission, which supports that. You set the goals, which accomplish the mission. You develop strategies, which allow you to achieve the goals. And you set measurable objectives, which fulfill the strategy. So these all build and support the plan itself. It hangs together nicely. And then you measure. So one other concept here that's important is what on the left side of this graphic, and it's referred to as values. And values are the behaviors that the organization is going to demand of itself. And I'll talk more about those in just a second, but they're vitally important. It's you can call it the culture of the organization. It's how people treat each other. It's how the board interacts with the public. It's how we expect all of us as service providers in the organization to behave. So I'll give you some specific examples here in this next slide. So for the vision of the organization, next slide, please. The vision statement that both vision and mission were adopted as written in the plan from 5 years ago. So these did not change. And generally speaking, in strategic planning, they shouldn't be changing too much. You would question, is it an organization that's really not anchored if you saw a lot of change in these? The vision statement, again, at the top of that graphic, is exemplary water management for a high quality of life in the Santa Clarita Valley. So if the agency does its job, it's going to exhibit top-notch management behaviors related to water provision, and it's going to support a high quality of life. You're going to have adequate water to do the things that make the Santa Clarita Valley a great place to live. The mission statement, rather, supports this vision. The mission is to provide responsible water stewardship to ensure the Santa Clarita Valley has reliable supplies of high quality water at a reasonable cost. So kind of three legs of that stool: reliability, enough water; high quality water; and a reasonable cost. And if you do those three things, you'll achieve this vision in supporting the high quality of life in the Santa Clarita Valley. So I'll talk more about goals and strategies here in more detail momentarily. Value-wise, and remember I talked about values are the behaviors that we're going to expect of all individuals that are providing service within the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. There were 7. And these were developed collaboratively with the rank and file staff in the organization. There was a lot of give and take and back and forth between staff and the executive team, and making sure that these were articulated correctly. And you can read the details and definitions in the plan. But we felt that the characteristics, the behaviors, we wanted excellence. We wanted to be characterized by excellence. We wanted an innovative workforce, willing to put forth new and fresh ideas and to drive those ideas for the benefit ultimately of the service provision to the customers. We wanted dedicated employees. We want employees that, and in fact, they are, who will get up in the middle of the night to go out and provide service provision and repair a break, and do so selflessly. We wanted integrity. They mean what they say what they mean. Teamwork, vital in an organization like this, where there's a lot of different disciplines within the organization. We talked about engineers and maintenance and construction and administration. All these folks need to work seamlessly together. Teamwork, a 5th value. Safety, if you had to put these in any kind of rank order, is probably number 1. We talked a little about this physical infrastructure. It's huge. It's a lot of moving parts. It's extremely powerful and heavy equipment. There's, in fact, a lot of heavy equipment involved in it, a lot of physical labor. Having safety paramount in this to make sure the employees are kept from harm was vital in sustainably providing the service. But it doesn't end there just with employees. Importantly, these employees are out in the community. They're shutting down or managing traffic when they're having to trench in a roadway to repair a line. There are safety issues associated with making sure this service doesn't jeopardize or harm or threaten consumers, customers, stakeholders, people just going about their lives in these construction areas. So safety was an important element. And then last but not least is inclusiveness. We wanted to have a culture and the right kind of words to make sure that the utility will be most successful when all viewpoints are listened to, are actively gleaned. In fact, one of the reasons for the workshop seminar here tonight is in part of that issue is inclusiveness, to make sure the viewpoints and the like are considered in this. So we wanted a very welcoming environment for a new employee coming in, for a customer coming in, for engagement within work teams in the organization. So 7 values, all important and all virtually unanimously adopted by the rank and file employees. So we felt very good about landing on a good solid set of values. Values shape the way the organization works. If you're going to have a strategic plan, the only way you'll accomplish it is really having a good set of strong values. And there they are. So now I want to go through, and we're going to fly through these fairly quickly. There's 8 goals, and the goals kind of drill down. Remember, we talked about the vision, the mission, and the goals. And within the goals are in each of these slides, there's some example strategies. Each one of these strategies have measurable objectives associated with them. And as I mentioned, there's 90 plus, and we don't have time tonight to go through those, but feel free to answer any questions on any of them that you might have. So I want to spend a little time on each of the goals. The first goal is exceptional customer service and community engagement. And this was identified and defined as advocating and maintaining a high level of customer and community satisfaction through policies, programs, and contacts. It's a vital part of what a utility does. They're there to serve you as customers, and all of their energy should be directed to make sure that satisfaction, that service is at a high level. So in their establishment of policies and programs and contacts, this is a paramount goal for them. So under three different broad categories of strategies, there's a set of objectives. The first, providing best-in-class customer service, has some objectives that accomplish that. The second, proactively communicate and engaging with the community on water matters of importance, and positioning the agency as a leading resource. It's important that the community understand where Santa Clarita Valley Water is going. It's important that Santa Clarita Valley Water understand where the community wants to go, to make sure that these are aligned. Having a good, solid communications and engagement program ensures that alignment. And then a third strategy under this goal, engaging local, regional, state, and federal government associations and organizations to influence water policy to the benefit of our service area customers. Santa Clarita Valley Water is one cog in the water infrastructure in the southwestern United States. It delivers, it receives water from much larger entities from the State Water Project through the state of California. That those tentacles, if you will, of water policy stretch all the way back to Washington, D.C., and being engaged and vigilant about how laws are being developed and how those will ultimately impact you as consumers is an important advocacy role that the agency plays to make sure that that these laws are sensitive to your needs on the ground as customers. So three strategies: goal A, exceptional customer service and community engagement. The next goal I'll spend a minute on is reliable infrastructure. This water gets to you through treatment plants and pipes and pumps, those pipes and pumps and treatment plants are in many cases mechanical in nature. They break down. They need reliable maintenance. They need, to be constructed and built in a fashion that they're very, resilient, strong, well built, well designed, and they need to be operated and maintained in a fashion that's sustainable, right? So we want to do the maintenance. It's just like changing the oil in your car. You want to make sure that these maintenance procedures for this infrastructure are followed very diligently and very carefully. So the goal here is to implement, operate, and maintain water infrastructure to ensure sustainable water service provision. So we're going to make sure that this stuff runs, that it's reliable, that it's there when we need it, and we can provide this water service to you, the customers, sustainably. We can keep this up, right, consistently. So three broad strategies. We need to plan, right, because conditions do change. I talked earlier about needing to develop additional supplies. One example, demands can vary within the water system that require us to move water in different directions or provide facilities to do that. You've got storage capacity needs. In some places, more storage is needed. That needs to be designed and built. And there's opportunities to interconnect some of these adjacent water systems to help build more resilience, if you will, in the region by being able to interconnect these and serve water back and forth if conditions warrant that. The second big strategy revolves around designing and constructing facilities to meet demand, including storage capacity. I mentioned about the interconnections here as well, but the designing and constructing of them, we have to make sure that they're designed properly. We have to make sure that they're built on time. We have to make sure they're built to standards and they will, in fact, last for the duration of their expected lives. Operational lives. And then lastly, operate and maintain the physical facilities. So this is probably, if you think about just the head count, and Steve can correct me on this, but this is probably half of the organization's staffing activity, the design, construction, and operation, maybe even more than that. But it's a very significant part of what water utilities do, what Santa Clarita Valley Water does. Goal B, reliable infrastructure. Goal C, sustainable water and water supply and resources. We have to have the supply to provide that reliability. We want to implement programs to ensure the service area has reliable water and supporting resources. We have 4 strategies here: conducting the planning, protecting SCV's water interests in the state water project I referred to earlier. Advancing integrated management of imported and local water resources. Matt referred a little bit to that in his remarks. The more we can make the imported supplies we bring in work hand in glove with these local supplies, the more cost effective it is, the more reliable you become as a water agency. There's some specific objectives in the plan to further that. And lastly, under strategies here, advanced demand management, which is conservation, helping people reduce water use where possible or feasible, and making sure we achieve state mandated water use efficiency targets. Okay, goal C. Next, goal D, high quality water. I talked about this in the challenges. The last 5 years, Matt referred to PFAS standards and moving quickly to make sure the treatment was in place. That is high quality water is always a feature, a pillar of strategic planning for water utilities. We want to make sure we protect the quality of our water supplies, ensure our drinking water is compliant with all water quality regulations. So we have established and are proud to I guess boast we've achieved 100% compliance with drinking water regulations. It's a high bar and one that is an organization they insist on meeting. They've been very proactive in installing groundwater treatment where appropriate. They've been one of the leaders in anticipating and complying with drinking water regulatory challenges. So these are 3 areas that you want to keep doing great at, right? And they are featured as strategies in this plan, and there's a series of objectives under each of those. Okay, 4 more to go. Financial resiliency, goal E, keeping this finely tuned machine humming requires resources to do that, requires the equipment and supplies and people and materials and development of capabilities and the like, all of which requires making sure that you have the adequate financial resources to pay those costs. So financial resiliency, maintaining a long-range, transparent, stable, and well-planned financial condition, resulting in current and future water users receiving fair and equitable rates and charges. Board adopted goal E, financial resiliency. So 5 strategy areas within the financial resiliency goal: establishing rates and charges that cover costs. Pretty straightforward in that sense, right? Increasing the focus on forward-looking financial information, making sure you've got the data in hand to effectively manage the finances. Expanding financial and performance reporting, right? So there's a series of objectives in there that further the reporting of that data. Improving financial risk management, so making sure levels of insurance, level of returns, investment, and the like are appropriately and nuanced and put in place such that you minimize financial risk. And lastly, in strategies, maintaining or improving the agency's bond rating, which is good today and excellent today. It's always the holy grail of doing even better on bond ratings because it gives you access to lower interest rates and ultimately lower costs. So 5 financial resiliency strategies, each of which has a series of objectives, measurable objectives under them. Our goal F, our 6th of the 8th, is high performance team. None of this happens without a strong and cohesive and collegial collaborative workforce. So we want to make sure we attract and retain a quality staff members and grow a culture of continuous improvement that fosters SCV Water's values, which we spoke about earlier. 5 strategies. So continue the integration Matt spoke to, promote these agencies' values, the 7 that I referred to earlier, promote this open and professional work environment, keep, attract, and train the quality staff, and lastly, implement integrated technology to make sure we're up to speed on providing these important technological tools to the workforce. All right, our 7th goal here then is environmental stewardship. This was added as a new goal by the board of directors from the last plan. Felt it important to establish a goal to achieve environmental compliance and strive for sustainable policies, projects, and practices. There were 3 overarching strategies here. We wanted to make sure we collaborate and engage with our partners to advance watershed resiliency. So working in the watershed, working with those interests to do the best we can to make sure that that watershed remains healthy and viable as a water resource to the community. 2, anticipate and comply with environmental regulatory changes. So this is sort of, we talked earlier about the water quality standards. This is sort of the environmental standard companion to that. This relates to endangered species issues, energy issues, and the like. And then lastly, strategy-wise rather, to advance the agency's sustainability profile. And this deals with energy use, resource use, and the like. So there's a series, again, of objectives under each of these. So lastly, but not leastly, at least in terms of goals, we have goal H, a safe and secure workplace. This also was split out and emphasized by the board of directors as being an important kind of pillar or goal for the agency. It's to maintain the safety of employees and secure the agency's physical and cyber resources. So ensuring that we've got a safe and healthy workforce and protecting our infrastructure from, what are growing potential threats from bad actors on the cybersecurity side of things. 3 strategies. Maintain the safe work environment, maintain a secure work environment to make sure that these systems are not subject to an intrusion or some act that would damage them from outside the organization, and then plan and prepare for catastrophic emergencies. This one, there's an important series of objectives in there. Planning for disasters and recovery of disasters for water systems, important part of the business that they're involved in here today. So elevated as a strategy under this goal. So a series of objectives also under each of these, and we can answer any questions that you might have on that. So that was a very quick romp through 8 goals, and I'll turn it back to Kevin.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you, Matt and Steve, for your portions as well. At this time, we do want to open it up for a question and answer session. So please feel free to drop any questions that you have into the Q&A box, and we'll read them as text. In that way, you can ask them anonymously if you prefer. You can also raise your hand using the raise hand button, and I should be able to unmute you from here and let you take over and ask your questions. So we're going to go through some text first. This first one is for Matt. I think it would be best to answer. Matt, the question is, what is the rationale behind customers paying for legacy debt from the previous individual agencies on their water bill?
Thanks. And just again, checking, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. When the merger was being developed between the various retailers and Castaic Lake Water Agency, one of the questions was some retailers had less debt than others, particularly Newhall County had less debt than the Santa Clarita Water Division, for example. And the way to equitably handle that was determined to be to establish what that amount of debt was as of the point of the merger, and then have that be retired by the ratepayers of that respective division. rather than transferring it to other ratepayers. So once that is paid off, it goes away over time.
Thank you, Matt. And again, that question was asked anonymously. If you'd like a follow-up, please feel free to type back in there. Now, moving on to our next question from Dennis. Dennis asks, our future may include both extended periods of drought interrupted by strong storms leading to flooding. Does a strategic plan quantitatively address how stormwater reclamation can play a role in retaining those floodwaters to ensure that our aquifers are filled?
Okay, I could take a shot. Steve could probably also take a shot. I think the key is quantitatively. This plan does not, it's not the same as a water resources master plan or a focused stormwater capture master plan. However, it does identify a list of resources that should be investigated and pursued. And as part of that, we are doing a couple of things. One, we are partnering with flood control on stormwater capture opportunities in the watershed. The other is we are looking at stormwater recharge potential in different parts of the watershed for either stormwater or actually even surplus stormwater from the imported system. There are some years where the state project is literally in flood management conditions. And if we can bring water down and recharge it, we can get the benefit of that as well. Steve, you may want to piggyback.
Yeah, I think, Matt, obviously that was a great explanation. The only thing I'd probably add to that is just the plan does value the watershed in general and the natural capacity of it to recharge the groundwater basins. We're really fortunate that the majority of our river is still unlined, and so it's valuing kind of that natural system and its ability to recharge the groundwater basins that's also articulated in the plan.
Thank you both for answering that. If there's any further questions to put into the Q&A or raise your hand, we'll give a few more minutes. And while we wait to check on it, I do want to remind you, I've put into the chat a link to our webpage where we have the strategic plan located. It's yourscvwater.com/strategic-plan. There you'll find the full PDF of the plan and see all the strategies, objectives, everything that Ed was talking about. At the bottom of that page is also a comment and feedback forum that we can use those comments, present them to the board of directors the next time we evaluate and revisit the plan. Again, this is a 5-year plan, but it's something that's constantly being measured against and updated as we go. Follow-up question on the legacy debt. So Matt, what you're saying is that the legacy debt has only been passed on to the ratepayers who were customers of that prior agency.
So the legacy debt is assigned to each of the 3 retailers based on the amount of debt that remain to be paid off. Over time, as the rate base changes, that legacy debt is spread to new customers. And the rationale for that is that debt paid for some of the facilities that they're also using as a customer of that division. So over time, that, again, want to emphasize, the plan is to retire all of that debt. There's no new debt going onto that charge. Any new debt is being shared proportionally across the entire rate base and tax base. And currently, Newhall has no legacy debt surcharge, and Santa Clarita and Valencia have their respective charges that, as that debt is retired over the next, I think it's about 10 to 12 years, maybe a little longer for Valencia, those charges will drop off to 0 over time.
Follow-up says makes complete sense. Thank you for answering that.
I like the enhancements in that comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Figured we leave them for the text. Any final questions before we wrap up, or any comments from Matt, Steve, or Ed before we do?
Yeah, I'll just say that hats off to the agency for tackling the next 5 years and the challenges that face the water industry, and the plan sets a great roadmap for achieving success in that environment. And it's flexible enough to give you the latitude to, to weave and dodge as you may need to in addressing what may come up that's unanticipated. So Godspeed.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Ed, Matt, and Steve, for your time. Thank you, everybody who joined our webinar for tonight on Water Matters and to look at our 5-year strategic plan. Again, visit our website, yourscvwater.com/strategic-plan. Read the full plan if you haven't already. Ask your questions and comments in that feedback form at the bottom. Send me an email. I put my email address in the chat. Come out to our next board meeting and give your comments and learn more about the agency as we go along, because we can't do what we do without you and your input as well. So thank you so much. And that'll do it for tonight. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.